Mi nombre es Robert Chatfield, soy el director del British Council en Argentina. Nuestra primera sesión se trata de la perspectiva argentina, una introducción a los programas de reasentamiento y la enseñanza de idioma para refugiados y migrantes en el contexto argentino.
Quisiera expresar mi apreciación para el British Council, para la excelente ejecución del proyecto que tenemos con el ACNUR, que ocupa una relevancia estratégica en las operaciones del ACNUR en Argentina, para lo que concierne tanto la protección como el acompañamiento para la reconstrucción de los medios de vida de las personas refugiadas y desplazadas forzosamente en el exterior. También quisiera aprovechar la ocasión para expresar mi reconocimiento para la Unión Europea, sin cuya contribución financiera lo anterior no hubiera podido ser posible. El lenguaje es el primer vehículo de integración local para solicitantes de asilo, refugiados y desplazados, y es la garantía en base a la cual se pueden emprender otro tipo de acciones y que garantizan el acceso al abanico de los derechos humanos que aseguran la dignidad de las personas y sus oportunidades de crecimiento individual y colectivo. Entre esas oportunidades están la inclusión económica y financiera, pero también la posibilidad de incidir en el diálogo social, la posibilidad de definir las prioridades del desarrollo y la posibilidad de construir comunidades solidarias. El lenguaje es esa forma lógica, esa condición necesaria que determina, como decía, nuestra mediación en la sociedad. Y entonces es la primera condición que tenemos que asegurar si apuntamos a la integración local de la población de nuestro común interés. Y son esas comunidades a las cuales aspiramos, comunidades donde refugiados y desplazados puedan contribuir desde la experiencia de sus vidas en sus países de orígenes, desde las capacidades que han desarrollado a través de su recorrido de educación, su recorrido profesional, y que puedan llevar todo eso a esa comunidad nueva, que no sea solamente una comunidad nueva desde el punto de vista geográfico, pero que sea una comunidad nueva porque la transformamos como nueva gracias a esas experiencias nuevas que entran en juego.
Primero que nada, coincidir con Magdalena de agradecer a la audiencia hoy, tanta gente interesada en lo que es Lenguas para la Resiliencia. Por supuesto, agradecerle tanto a la Unión Europea por el financiamiento para el proyecto, y a la ACNUR y a la OIM en su colaboración en la coordinación. El British Council no hubiera podido hacer esto solo sin la ayuda de estas organizaciones. A lo largo de estos 3 años, el British Council trabajó con casi 500 alumnos y alumnas que tuvieron orígenes diversos, niveles de idioma diversos, pero lo más enriquecedor que tuvo este proyecto fue la posibilidad de brindarles una oportunidad de inserción a aquellas personas que llegaban al país. Nos permitía darle una solución que fuera acorde a la necesidad de las personas de interés, desde Jujuy hasta la Patagonia. Y esto es lo interesante. Permitió no solo un desarrollo en los niveles de lengua y que la persona que tomaba las clases pudiera evolucionar en su nivel de idioma español, sino también podía permitir generar comunidades de personas que vivían en distintos lugares del país, pero que estaban pasando por una misma situación de inserción en un país receptor.
Well, the linguistic landscape is inevitably very varied in the different contexts hosting refugees. In Africa, in the African context, there could be hundreds of languages spoken in a particular host institution, host location, literally hundreds, and a range of languages, to say nothing of dialects, used by the African refugees themselves. Even if we take just those countries that surround Syria, we find enormous variation in the linguistic needs. Refugees in Turkey generally have no knowledge at all of the overwhelmingly predominant language, and Turkish is what is needed for school and higher education. The disruption of literacy, even in their own Arabic language for many young refugees from Syria, means that even in Jordan and Lebanon, where Arabic is the dominant language, there may be literacy obstacles to entering the formal education system. In higher education, there is a need for English in all of these countries. And in Lebanon, as well as Arabic, secondary age children need to have a knowledge of English or French to fully access the school curriculum. In the Kurdistan region of Iraq, home to many Syrian refugees, a knowledge of one or more varieties of Kurdish is necessary to participate in the education system. So the acquisition or even successful retention of the home language can help build resilience. Language is a key factor in the education of mobile populations and can offer protection, or it can also enhance vulnerability. It is therefore both an enabler or a barrier to resilience. Language can be a positive enabler by being the means to enhance cultural understanding and social cohesion, as well as helping to provide a sense of identity and helping people remember to know who they are. The possession of appropriate languages enables people to express what they need and what they feel, and can help them to succeed and thrive educationally. It can also enable access to the job market, which helps strengthen host communities as well as providing a readiness for rebuilding when they return to their home economies. However, a lack of appropriate languages excludes people from the areas just mentioned, and the sense of marginalisation can result in community conflict, both within migrant communities and between the host and migrant communities. Lack of appropriate languages can also cause a generally undesired dependence on others and on host structures, resulting in refugees having things done to them or for them in the long term and depriving them of their individual agency. A particular area where we've had a strong history is in the Middle East, in Syria and in Syria's neighbouring countries. The current crisis in Syria and the huge influx of refugee communities and the countries that host them has caused huge areas of destabilisation. So it is through the refugees that we're attempting to diminish, through the provision of language services, their vulnerability, and to increase the protective factors that can build their resilience. The research and programmes created through this, we hope, will stimulate debate, leading to further research and benefit the refugees and host communities that are supporting them. As a first step in helping to promote an understanding of the language needs of refugees and host communities from Syria, in early 2016, the British Council commissioned a research project which resulted in the publication of Language for Resilience, the role of language in enhancing the resilience of Syrian refugees and host communities. Two experienced researchers were selected to conduct the research. That's Dr. Tony Capstick from the University of Reading and Murray Delaney, who is an educational psychotherapist and author of the great book, Teaching the Unteachable. So these are the themes that emerged from this research, which we have used to underpin the work we have done since and still use. There's one more. So most importantly, in some ways, the first area is home language and literacy development. As I mentioned earlier, a knowledge of the student's home language fosters a sense of belonging and therefore adds to the protective factors for refugees. The second thing, access to education, training and employment. Language competence provides access to and engagement in the world of education, training and employment. Learning together and social cohesion. So language learning activities are often a basis for developing individual resilience and ensuring dignity, self-sufficiency and other life skills. and then addressing the effects of trauma on learning. So sensitively created and managed language programs can be a way to help address trauma and loss. And I think Claire mentioned earlier that she's running a MOOC for teachers in this area, and she will say a little bit more about this, I think, in a moment. Well, the British Council is now working in partnership with other organisations in being involved or running around 15 projects at the moment globally in this area. Some are concerned with access to both primary and secondary and higher education systems in host countries, such as the recently completed LASER project in Jordan.
So the strategy or the approach, if you like, that we've taken to teacher development, and this predates COVID, and for a number of important reasons. A lot of the places a lot of the teachers that we want to reach work and live in places that we can't physically get to. So these, and for an example of this is certain places in Syria where we want to support teachers that are working with internally displaced students, but we physically can't be there. And this applies to a lot of places in sub-Saharan Africa and across the Middle East as well. So we took this kind of digital first approach as a way to reach as many teachers as possible and to kind of develop as much content as would be helpful for them. But content alone doesn't solve the problem. It's a much wider issue of teachers feeling often that they are quite alone in the classroom, they're quite alone in their profession. They don't necessarily feel like they are part of a community or a community of practice. So the second thing that we did, in addition to all of the content that I'll talk to you about shortly, is create an online Facebook community. And this is a place for teachers, teacher educators, researchers, and program managers to have discussions about not just what they're learning on the courses that we deliver, but also to seek support for issues that they're facing in teaching or in program management, to ask important research questions if they're running a piece of research and they need insights from the field, and basically just to provide a place for people to feel more connected. And that's sort of the third point, and how all of these things fit together is this idea that linking up people that work with migrants and refugees in different parts of the world and on different kinds of programs can help them to help each other innovate and talk about best practices, share their experiences, and sort of learn across projects and across borders. This last run just ended at the end of November, and I think we had about 1,500 teachers on it, which was great. But we've run this, I think this is the 5th time that we've run it. And every time we run it, we learn more. We learn more about where our audiences are, who they are, what they want, what kind of content they really respond to. And that's helped us sort of make decisions about what priorities we should be making for ourselves in terms of what content we develop next. But what we've found has resonated a lot with teachers has been this idea and this understanding of trauma, how to address it, how to help learners address it, and how language specifically can be used as a platform and as a way of expressing that trauma in a safe and supportive and progressive manner. The other thing that we have found has resonated is this use of L1, or use of mother tongue. In traditional or sort of old school, if you like, language learning, there was this belief or this almost obsession with you have to only be teaching and learning in the language, in the target language, which is often a second or a third language. And we have found through developing these courses and working with these teachers that mother tongue actually has a very important place in these specific language classrooms, and that it shouldn't be a matter of use it as little as possible. It really should be a matter of use it as much as is necessary. And so we've started to turn our thinking around on that a bit, and better understand how to encourage more first language use in second language classrooms. Other courses that we are currently running and planning to run in the coming months. These are just some examples of the events that we run. And again, just another way to stay in touch and to stay part of our Language for Resilience work. We run bi-weekly Facebook Live events that you can join through our Teaching English page. And these will often have our moderators who will be talking through specific content related to the online modules. And all of those discussions are then hosted on our page.
The full program started later in 2018. That was as from July, with an agreement between the European Union, the UN's Agency for Refugees, and the British Council. Mrs. Syria was part of the agreement first, but the second year it was just the UN's agency and the British Council. As regards the Argentine program and the experience after the pilot projects and the complete program, what is needed is enhanced intercultural awareness, really understanding of being able to place yourself or trying to place yourself in somebody else's shoes. So it's not just about talking about other cultures, but living different cultures in the classroom, the virtual classroom in this case. So it's not just talking about, but living, going through the experience. And instead of trying to make beneficiaries adapt to our culture, it's the other way about. It's teachers and those involved in the program trying to start from where beneficiaries are and not where we would like them to be. Empathy, commitment, patience, and the willingness to adapt are of paramount importance. Some teachers maybe were more sympathetic and they ended up quitting the program because it's not from sympathy that you can help individuals, but it's from empathy, from having the wish and the willingness to help them integrate into society and develop and enhance their own resilience. Flexibility is necessary to deal with the unexpected, to change according to beneficiaries' needs, which are always at the center of the program. And not only flexibility, but also the need to respond to whatever crops up, from the point of view of what happens in classroom, from the point of view of what beneficiaries might need, from the point of view of comments that they can make. So one key feature of this program is awareness of everybody involved. On the one hand, helping beneficiaries become aware of how much they are learning, on what they are learning, and how they can use that little Spanish maybe that they are learning to use into everyday life. Awareness of their needs, awareness that we need to respond to their needs and not teach the syllabus. I mean, they need to teach, not Spanish, but integrate, help beneficiaries integrate into society and develop their resilience through language, which is a different, let's say, different focus from regular, let's say, language teaching courses. One of the challenges was beneficiaries' learning styles and their own cultures as regards learning. Teachers commented, they didn't complain. They commented that technology was quite an issue, in that beneficiaries basically managed their smartphones, and to a certain extent, we all know that it's very difficult to learn and to attend classes with, from quite a small screen. I don't think beneficiaries had any experience in virtual learning or online learning. So remote teaching was quite an issue for them as well. So it took time for teachers and beneficiaries to, in a way, come to an agreement as to what was expected. Incorporation of life into the classes. So it was not just teaching Spanish that then individuals or beneficiaries would use outside the classroom situation, but incorporating life. For instance, I don't think, in my experience as a coursebook writer and having conducted research with using several coursebooks, I don't think I've ever seen a situation of a parent having to attend a meeting with the teacher or the head of school. And yet that was something that beneficiaries had to go through. And they may know Spanish, but they didn't know, let's say, the linguistic habits or linguistic habitus needed in that situation. So in a way, that was a contribution, this idea of incorporating life into the contents, into teaching, was a way to contribute to the development of linguistic habitus in beneficiaries. We are used to moving learners from A1, A+1 to B1, B2, and C levels. However, a syllabus for this type of program needs to be based on something absolutely different. In the case of the Argentine program, it is based on 4 different dimensions: social integration, training for work, free time use, and literacy development. So these 4 areas have to permeate all of the lessons, and lessons should be planned, and the syllabus should be planned around these 4 dimensions. So what we need to take into account is beneficiaries' linguistic needs rather than what tradition tells us about language development. As I said before, one of the aims of the program is to help participants, beneficiaries, develop their linguistic habit. I mean, not only the social habits, but linguistic habitus. So what is needed is a view of language as social and cultural practice rather than language as a skill. So it's not against communicative language teaching. It has a different focus, even though communication, of course, is one of the aims, but the focus is different. What we need to include, therefore, is not so much communicative pedagogies, but inclusive pedagogies, in which the beneficiary is the center of the learning process, not only as an individual, but as a member of society, a member of the community as well. Principles that would enable and accompany, guide participants into integration, society integration, and development of resilience. The aims and the objectives of the program should be very clear to everybody. They should also determine the pedagogies which are in keeping with the aims, the objectives, and the principles. And there should be a core syllabus, so not a set syllabus, but a core syllabus, situation-based. And you may consider that, okay, if we have developed this project, this program for Spanish, then the same program can be used in any Spanish-speaking country. Yet there are differences in not only in different regions or different Spanish-speaking countries, but even within the same country. I mean, we know that there's no such thing as Argentine Spanish or British English or American English. I mean, it's impossible to equate nationality with one language variety. That's why I consider that it should be situation-based, situations, not communicative situations, but situations in which every beneficiary or which any beneficiary will need to encounter in everyday life. And then language can be mapped onto these situations. And as to language growth, this can happen when you revisit the same situation, but considering more complex, more formal, or more colloquial language. So in this way, a spiral curriculum can also be created. So just to sum up and to conclude this part, what is needed for in a language to develop resilience of individuals and help them integrate into society is precisely based on principles and the clear aim and objective to make this happen.
Del ambicioso proyecto que implica ni más ni menos transmitir el conocimiento de lenguas, que en este caso particular, en el caso de la Argentina, tiene un universo de población peticionante de protección internacional que de una manera u otra domina el español. No es menos cierto que una de las características de los programas que se han destacado, y creo que Leonor recientemente lo exponía, que tenía más que ver con la población afectada por el conflicto en la República Árabe Siria, la asimilación, digamos, de lenguas, no solo aquí en Argentina, donde quedó muy clara la exposición de Leonor, sino en otras partes del mundo, no solo son instrumentos a los efectos, digamos, de la inserción, que ya de por sí es relevante, particularmente para población migrante, refugiada, necesitada de protección, sino en el caso, por ejemplo, de la Argentina, hay una perspectiva muy marcada en términos del ejercicio de derechos por parte de este universo. Y la pregunta que uno debe hacer, digamos, o la reflexión que también uno debe pensar es que los derechos se ejercen prácticamente y declamativamente. Entonces, muchas veces el desconocimiento de la lengua es un impedimento objetivo que no tiene que ver solo con una noción de integración o asimilación, sino que esto es resultado, digamos, del ejercicio práctico, efectivo, constante de los derechos de los cuales una persona migrante, una persona refugiada, una persona necesitada de algún tipo de protección nacional es sujeto.
Muchísimas gracias a todos los que han estado presentes en esta sesión del día de hoy.